Hey, I'm Nikki, author of Chicken Keeping Pure and Simple and the creator of Purely Chickens here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. It's gonna be nearly 100 degrees today. So I'm here to talk about how to deal with heat stress in chickens. Believe it or not, the summer heat is worse on chickens than the cold in winter. I'm gonna talk today about the most important things when you're dealing with heat with chickens and how to handle them if they do get overstressed. Mike says, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get all of my content, and don't forget to check me out on my other content platforms as well. If you live somewhere with extreme heat during the summers, you might want to consider getting heat hardy chickens. Chickens have a higher body temperature than we do, so the heat really gets to them. Not to mention the fact that they have feathers trapping in the heat at all times, so that can be really hard. There are a few signs you need to watch out for to know if your chickens are too hot or just hot in general. If they're just hot in general, you're going to notice them holding their wings out. This is to let the trapped warm air out from their feathers. They might be panting or open mouth breathing, laying around more, drinking more and eating less, watery droppings just because they're drinking more. They're going to be laying fewer eggs and probably going to have some pale combs. If your chickens are in heat distress, it's an emergency. We're going to talk about what to do at the end of this video, but you might notice them being more lethargic and they're going to have trouble standing. That could be two things to watch out for. So what do we do to prevent our chickens from being too hot? The first thing I'm going to suggest kind of seems silly, but I cannot stress this enough. They need to have water all day. Cool water is better, and they need to have open waterers so they can dip their beaks in so they can cool down. Even if they're without water for just a short amount of time during really hot days, it can be a problem quickly. So I like to encourage them to drink because sometimes when they're feeling too hot, they just don't feel like getting up. Here I've got some mint leaves and some frozen berries in here just to pique curiosity. I'm not really sure that the mint leaves actually cool their body temperature down because my chickens don't tend to eat it, but the berries definitely help keep the water cooler longer because they were frozen before I put them in there. I cannot stress this point enough as well. Having shade for your chickens in the summer is the most important thing. They need to be able to get out of that blazing sun. So our run is covered. It has a roof over top, and you can see my chickens love hanging out in here. It just helps to keep the heat down. The sand that we have in here does not get hot because of the roof over top, and it works really well for us. Shade is the most important thing. When people ask me, where should I put my chicken coop? I always say, put it in the shade because it's more important to get them out of the sun in the summer than it is to have sun in the winter. Here we have a fenced in run that's about 100 by 50 foot long, and the chickens have lots and lots of shade in here as well, and they do tend to just hang out here to cool down. There is some sun, but most of it is covered by these big, huge trees and bushes. I know it's not possible for everybody to put their chickens where there is already natural shade, but you can use canopies, umbrellas, tarps, whatever you can get your hands on to create shade for your chickens. Another thing you can do to cool down the area that they're hanging out in is use a misting hose attachment. This just hooks onto your regular hose and it puts out a really fine mist, and you would not believe how much it actually does cool down the air. If you've ever been to an amusement park before and you're waiting in that really long roller coaster ride, and then you get to the part where they have these little misting fans, you know how it feels to go under there when you're really hot. My chickens, they take some time to get used to it, so don't be offended if they don't love it right away. But if you walk in there yourself, this whole area will stay cool on those really hot summer days. I have this one too, and it just kind of wraps around wherever you want it to go, or you can just lay it straight on the ground and give them a spot to get cooled down in. Another really important thing is to keep the coop cool because even though they're not going to spend most of their day in there, they are going to be there in the night. So here I have a frozen jug of water and a little fan inside of a bucket to kind of create a little mini air conditioner. I have these solar fans here that push air in to keep the air fresh inside the coop. And I always have my windows open inside here as well. I love these fans because they're run on solar power and I don't ever have to think about them. They just do their thing. I also have solar vent fans up high. Here you can see it to the right there. That is run on solar power, and I have that one facing out, so it's pulling the hot air from the peak and pushing it outside of the coop, just to keep it cooled down in here for when the chickens go to bed at night, because we don't want them to be sleeping in just a big stuffy box. You can also put some kiddie pools out with big stepping stones in them so the chickens can cool down their feet, or you can just leave a hose trickling on the ground to give them a little stream to wade around in. They do tend to like that as well. Here you can see I have a chicken in a bucket of water. This is if I see a chicken who's in distress, but not to that lethargic point yet. And I'm like, you know what? I think you need cool down. I'm obviously not going to just put her back into the sun after this. I will put them under the shade, but it does help cool their body down. I don't make this water ice cold. I just make it so it's in between, cool and lukewarm, but more on the cool side. And the chickens do love it. You can see Ricky here. She will just stay in this bucket for as long as I let her. She really does like the cool down in here. If you end up with a chicken who gets to that distress level where they're acting lethargic, this is an emergency. You're going to give them a cool bath, probably for about 5 to 10 minutes. Bring them indoors so they're in an isolated area. You want to give them electrolytes in their water. You want to make sure that you're giving them high sugar fruits, kind of like watermelon, things like that. And then you can give them high protein food. Give them their regular food, but you could also do scrambled eggs and grubs, things like that, just until they act normal again. And then put them back outside when it's not the heat of the day. So I try to do like early morning. My chickens are having frozen blueberries here as a treat, but just as a reminder, you don't want to give chickens food or treats like this during the really hot times of day. You want to let them preserve their energy during those times of day, so give it to them early morning or evening. That's all I have for you today on Heat with Chickens. If you found this useful, please subscribe. Don't forget to like the video and share with a friend. Everything I talked about is linked down below, including my book, Chicken Keeping Pure and Simple. And until next time, stay cool.